In 1908, Nikola Tesla was building a tower on Long Island that he claimed could transmit electricity wirelessly to the entire world for free. His investor J.P. Morgan pulled his funding when he realized there was no way to put a meter on free electricity. The tower was demolished in 1917 and sold for scrap to pay Tesla's debts. Morgan went on to control much of America's electrical infrastructure. Tesla died alone in a hotel room in 1943. The U.S. government seized his papers the moment he died. In 1996, General Motors released the EV1. It was the most advanced electric vehicle ever built. It had a range of 160 miles, could charge overnight, and produced zero emissions. Thousands of people leased one. Consumer satisfaction surveys showed users loved them. GM never allowed customers to buy them. In 2003, GM recalled every single EV1 and had them all crushed. Drivers who had leased the cars showed up at the impound lots to protest. Some brought flowers. GM crushed the cars anyway. Nikola Tesla's career is the clearest historical record of what happens to inventors whose discoveries threaten established business models. He invented alternating current, which made the modern electrical grid possible. He held over 300 patents. He developed radio communication before Marconi. He experimented with wireless power transmission decades before it was considered theoretically possible. And he died penniless, having been systematically defunded, marginalized, and discredited by the business interests his inventions threatened most directly. J.P. Morgan was the most powerful banker in American history. He controlled railroads, steel, and was building control over America's electrical infrastructure. When Tesla proposed a system that would deliver electricity wirelessly and freely to anyone on Earth, Morgan understood immediately what it meant. His entire business model was built on metered power, power you paid for per unit consumed. Free energy was not a scientific question. It was an existential business threat. He pulled Tesla's funding and made sure no other major investor would step in. Large corporations have a documented practice of purchasing patents for technologies that threaten their existing products and shelving them. This practice, called defensive patenting, is entirely legal and widely acknowledged. An oil company that purchases a patent for an engine that runs on water is not legally required to develop it. A pharmaceutical company that purchases a drug that cures a disease rather than treating it chronically is not legally required to bring it to market. The patent system designed to protect inventors has become a tool to suppress invention. The story of the EV1 is documented in detail in the 2006 film Who Killed the Electric Car? The film traces the forces that conspired to eliminate the vehicle: oil company lobbying against zero-emission vehicle mandates, auto dealer resistance to a car that required no oil changes and minimal maintenance, and GM's own institutional resistance to a product that disrupted its own business model. The technology was not flawed. The technology was viable. The business interests arrayed against it were simply more powerful than the technology's advocates. The pharmaceutical industry earns its revenue from treatments, not from cures. A drug that a patient takes daily for the rest of their life is infinitely more profitable than a drug that cures the condition in a single course of treatment. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is the business model. Cancer treatment generates over $200 billion per year globally. A definitive cure for cancer would collapse that market overnight. This does not mean cures are being deliberately suppressed. It does mean the financial incentives for developing them are structurally weak. Multiple cancer researchers have described the difficulty of getting funding for research into treatments that are not patentable. Natural compounds, dietary interventions, and off-patent drugs that show promise against cancer consistently struggle for research funding because there is no business model to support clinical trials. The clinical trial process costs hundreds of millions of dollars. That money comes primarily from pharmaceutical companies. Companies fund research into drugs they can patent and sell at high margins. Research that cannot generate that return rarely gets funded to completion. In 1998, a man named Stanley Meyer claimed to have built a water fuel cell that could run a car on water alone. He demonstrated the device publicly and was reportedly in negotiations with the Department of Defense about military applications. In 1998, he died suddenly at a restaurant after dinner, reportedly saying he had been poisoned. His dune buggy and all of his research equipment subsequently disappeared. Whether Meyer's claims were genuine, fraudulent, or somewhere between, the pattern of inventor death followed by technology disappearance recurs in this space with notable frequency. The suppression of clean energy technology does not require secret meetings or assassinations. It requires lobbying. The fossil fuel industry spends over $200 million per year lobbying Congress and state legislatures. It funds think tanks that produce research questioning climate science. It makes campaign contributions to politicians who sit on energy committees. When a technology threatens a trillion-dollar industry, that industry has the financial resources to fight it through regulatory capture, legal challenges, and political influence. The technology doesn't need to be destroyed. It just needs to be delayed long enough. The pattern repeats across industries and across history. A new technology emerges that threatens an established business model. The established business either acquires the technology and shelves it, lobbies regulators to create barriers to market entry, or uses its market power to undercut the new technology until it runs out of funding. The casualties of this system are not just the inventions. They are the inventors, the researchers, the small companies, and ultimately the public, which never gets access to technologies that could have transformed their lives. History has consistently vindicated the inventors it initially suppressed. Tesla's alternating current system powers the entire world. The electric car that GM crushed in 2003 became the dominant future of transportation 20 years later. Solar power, once dismissed as economically unviable, is now the cheapest form of electricity generation in history. The question is not whether suppressed technologies eventually emerge. They do, usually when the business interests opposing them finally see more profit in adoption than in resistance. The question is how many decades of delay the public paid for in the meantime. The lesson of suppressed technologies is not to believe every claim of a free energy device or a miracle cure. Most such claims are fraudulent. The lesson is to understand the structural incentives that govern which technologies get funded, which get shelved, and which get destroyed. When a new technology threatens a powerful incumbent industry, that industry will use every legal tool available to delay, discredit, or destroy it. That is not a conspiracy. It is capitalism operating exactly as designed. Understanding the system is the first step to seeing through it. This is the Redacted.